The small town of Pinewood looked peaceful from the highway. Rolling hills, neat farmhouses, and a water tower that gleamed in the morning sun. Special Agent Camilla Reyes tapped her fingers on the steering wheel as she drove past the "Welcome to Pinewood" sign. Population 8,742, it claimed, though Camilla knew those numbers had grown in recent years. She pulled over to check her appearance in the mirror. Dark hair pulled back in a practical bun, minimal makeup, and a navy blue suit that meant business. Camilla wasn't concerned with being gorgeous, a word her colleagues sometimes used that made her roll her eyes, but she understood the power of presentation. In a town like this, she'd need every advantage. The air felt thick with humidity as she stepped out of her car in front of the Pinewood County Sheriff's Department, a brick building with an American flag hanging limply in the still air. Camilla grabbed her briefcase, straightened her jacket, and walked toward the entrance with the confident stride that had become second nature after 8 years with the Bureau. "Can I help you, ma'am?" The deputy at the front desk looked up from his computer. His name tag read Deputy Wilson. He had a boyish face that seemed too young for the uniform. "Special Agent Camilla Reyes, FBI." She showed her badge. "I'm here to see Sheriff Thornton." Something shifted in Deputy Wilson's expression. Surprise, maybe concern. "Do you have an appointment?" "He's expecting a representative from the Bureau." "That would be me." 10 minutes later, Camilla sat across from Sheriff Wade Thornton in his office. Hunting trophies lined the walls alongside photographs of the sheriff shaking hands with various officials. Thornton himself was a tall man with weathered skin and gray hair cut military short. His handshake had been firm, his smile not reaching his eyes. "I have to say, Agent Reyes, when they told me the FBI was sending someone, I didn't expect—" He gestured vaguely in her direction. "A woman?" Camilla suggested with a polite smile. "Someone so young." He finished smoothly. "Coffee?" "No, thank you." Camilla opened her briefcase and pulled out a folder. "I'll get right to the point, Sheriff. The Bureau has been tracking arrest statistics across the state. Pinewood County shows some concerning patterns that warrant a closer look." Sheriff Thornton leaned back in his chair. "Is that right? Well, we run a tight ship here. Law and order has always been the Thornton family way. My daddy was sheriff for 30 years before me, and his daddy before that. I'm aware of your family's history with the department. Very impressive." Camilla kept her tone professional. "However, the data shows a significant disparity in arrest rates between white residents and people of color in your county, particularly Latino residents. That disparity has grown sharply in the past 18 months. The sheriff's smile hardened. "Those numbers don't tell the whole story. We've had an influx of seasonal workers for the orchards. More people means more crime. Simple as that." "Perhaps," said Camilla. "But the nature of the arrests is what caught our attention. Minor traffic violations escalating to searches and arrests at rates far above state averages, and only for certain demographics." Sheriff Thornton stood up and walked to the window. "Agent Reyes, you're from the city, aren't you? Things work differently in small towns. Everybody knows everybody. My deputies have good instincts about trouble." "Instincts aren't admissible in court, Sheriff. Facts are what matter." Camilla closed her folder. "I'll be in town for several weeks conducting interviews and reviewing case files. I'm sure you and your department will provide full cooperation." "Of course." The sheriff turned back to her, his expression unreadable. Pinewood County has nothing to hide. After leaving the sheriff's office, Camilla drove through town to get her bearings. Pinewood had a picture-perfect main street with shops that looked like they belonged in another era. People nodded at each other as they passed on the sidewalk. An older couple sitting on a bench waved at her car, a reflex of small-town friendliness before they realized she was a stranger. Camilla found the motel where she'd be staying on the edge of town. The Blue Pine Motel had seen better days, but it was clean and the owner, an older woman named Helen, didn't ask too many questions when Camilla checked in. "You're not our usual type of visitor," Helen remarked as she handed over the room key. "Business in Pinewood?" "Just some research," Camilla replied with a smile that revealed nothing. In her room, Camilla unpacked her laptop and pinned a map of the county to the wall. She marked the locations of recent arrests based on the preliminary data she'd reviewed before arriving. A pattern was already emerging. Most arrests happened in the eastern part of the county, where many of the Latino families lived. Her phone rang. It was her supervisor, Agent Thomas. "How's Pinewood treating you?" he asked. The welcome was about what we expected. "Sheriff Thornton isn't happy I'm here, but he's smart enough not to show it openly." "Any red flags?" Camilla thought about the careful way the sheriff had watched her, measuring his words. "Nothing concrete yet. But there's something not right about this place, I can feel it." "Trust your gut, Reyes, but remember we need solid evidence. The Bureau can't afford another small-town showdown without ironclad proof." "I know the stakes." Camilla thought about her last case in Chicago, how close they'd come to losing it all because of one missing piece of documentation. "I'll be careful." After hanging up, she changed into casual clothes, jeans and a simple blouse, and headed out. The best way to understand a town was to become part of it. The local diner, Pat's Place, was busy with the dinner crowd when Camilla walked in. Conversations dipped briefly as people noticed the newcomer, then resumed with a slight murmur. She took a seat at the counter. "What can I get you, honey?" The waitress had kind eyes and a name tag that read, Donna. "Whatever's good," Camilla replied. "I'm new in town. Passing through or staying a while?" "Staying for a bit. I'm doing some research on regional law enforcement practices." Not a lie, but not the full truth either. Donna raised an eyebrow. "A researcher, huh? Well, the chicken pot pie is our specialty, She ate. Camilla listened to the conversations around her. Talk about local sports, someone's new grandchild, complaints about the heat, normal small-town chatter. But when the door opened and two deputies walked in, she noticed how certain tables went quiet. The deputies nodded to people they knew, which seemed to be everyone. They took seats at the far end of the counter. Donna brought them coffee without being asked. "Evening, Donna," said the older deputy. "Busy night." "Summer tourists heading to the lake," Donna replied. "Plus we got ourselves a researcher." She nodded toward Camilla. The deputies looked her way. Camilla smiled politely and continued eating. "That right?" The older deputy sized her up. "What kind of research?" "Regional law enforcement practices," Camilla repeated. "Statistical analysis mostly. Pretty boring stuff." "Don't seem boring to me," said the younger deputy. "I'm Deputy Franklin. This here's Deputy Harris. We're pretty much the law around these parts, along with Sheriff Thornton. Nice to meet you both." Camilla wiped her mouth with a napkin. "I'm sure I'll be seeing more of you during my stay." Deputy Harris frowned slightly. "You working with anyone, in particular on this research?" Before Camilla could answer, the diner door opened again. A young Latino man walked in, then froze when he saw the deputies. He quickly turned and left. Deputy Franklin stood up. "Think I'll just have a word with Miguel. Make sure everything's all right." Camilla watched through the window as the deputy followed the young man outside. The conversation looked one-sided, the deputy doing most of the talking while Miguel kept his eyes down. "Friend of yours?" Camilla asked Deputy Harris. "Miguel?" "Nah, just one of the orchard workers. Gets himself in trouble sometimes." Deputy Harris shrugged. "Franklin likes to keep tabs on certain folks. Preventative policing, you might call it." "Interesting approach," Camilla said neutrally. Later that night, in her motel room, Camilla added notes to her case file. Deputy Franklin's interaction with Miguel had been brief but telling. The body language, the immediate departure when seeing law enforcement, the deputy's casual explanation of preventative policing. All pieces of a puzzle she was just beginning to assemble. She looked at the map on her wall, the clusters of pins, showing where arrests had happened. Tomorrow she would start interviewing people in those neighborhoods, building connections, gaining trust. Somewhere in this peaceful-looking town was the truth about Sheriff Wade Thornton and his department. Camilla Reyes had built her career on finding hidden truths, on seeing the patterns others missed. Pinewood County might look like a postcard of small-town America, but something was wrong beneath the surface, and she was going to find it. The eastern part of Pinewood County looked different from the postcard-perfect town center. Here, the houses were smaller, closer together, with gardens that grew vegetables instead of flowers. Children played in the streets, darting between parked cars in games of tag. Camilla drove slowly, noting how many people glanced at her car with wary eyes. She parked in front of a small grocery store called Garcia's Market. A bell jingled as she entered. The shelves were packed with products, many with Spanish labels. The smell of fresh bread filled the air. A middle-aged woman behind the counter looked up. "Can I help you find something?" "I hope so," Camilla replied with a warm smile. "I'm new in town and I heard this is the best place for authentic ingredients." The woman seemed to relax slightly. "You heard right. I'm Rosa Garcia. My husband and I opened this place 12 years ago. Camila Reyes." She offered her hand. 12 years is a long time. You must know Pinewood pretty well." "The Pinewood I knew is changing," Rosa said with a sigh. "It used to be a good place, for families like ours. Now." She glanced out the window as a sheriff's car cruised slowly past the store. "Problems with law enforcement?" Camilla asked casually, examining a can of chilies. Rosa's expression closed off. "I didn't say that." "Of course not." Camilla placed the can in a basket. "I'm just curious about the community. I'm actually here doing research on regional policing practices." "You're a cop?" Rosa took a step back. "FBI." Camilla showed her badge briefly. "But I'm not here to cause trouble for anyone. Just the opposite, in fact." Rosa studied her for a long moment. "There's a community meeting tonight at the church, San Pedro's, 3 blocks from here. If you want to understand this neighborhood, that would be a place to start." "Thank you," Camilla said, adding a few more items to her basket. "I appreciate the tip." As she paid for her groceries, the bell jingled again. A young woman entered with a small boy holding her hand. The woman froze when she saw Camilla talking to Rosa. "It's okay, Maria," Rosa called out. "She's not with the sheriff." Maria approached cautiously. She couldn't have been more than 25, with tired eyes that looked older. The boy, around 5 years old, hid partially behind his mother's legs. "This is Camila Reyes," Rosa explained. "She's FBI, looking into police practices." Maria's eyes widened. "Really? Why now? After everything that's happened?" "What has happened?" Camilla asked gently. Maria looked down at her son, then back at Camilla. "My brother, Antonio. He's been in county jail for 3 months over a broken taillight." "A taillight?" Camilla frowned. "They said they found drugs in his car, but there weren't any drugs. Antonio doesn't touch that stuff. He was saving to start college." Maria's voice cracked. "He has a public defender who won't return our calls." Camilla pulled out a business card and wrote her cell number on the back. "I'd like to hear more about your brother's case if you're willing to talk." Maria took the card, studying it. "Why should I trust you?" "You shouldn't. Not yet," Camilla said honestly. "But I'm here because something isn't right in this county and I want to fix it. Your brother's case might help me understand what's happening." Later that evening, Camila sat in the back row of San Pedro's church. The wooden pews were filled with families, mostly Latino, though she noticed a few white faces scattered throughout. At the front, a gray-haired priest was speaking in both English and Spanish. "We must continue to support each other during these difficult times," he was saying. "The legal clinic will be open on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Please bring any paperwork related to your cases." Camila listened as people stood up to share stories. A man whose landscaping business was losing clients because his workers kept getting pulled over on the way to job sites. A high school teacher who said Latino students were being disciplined more harshly than their white classmates. A grandmother whose grandson was serving 30 days for public intoxication after celebrating a friend's wedding. The pattern was clear. Minor offenses, leading to searches, arrests, and charges that seemed excessive. The stories matched the statistics Camilla had reviewed before coming to Pinewood. After the meeting, she introduced herself to Father Luis, the priest. "An FBI agent," he said thoughtfully. Many here will be afraid to talk to you. I understand. That, Camilla replied. But if things are going to change, I need their stories, evidence. Father Luis nodded slowly. Come to my office. There's something you should see. In a small room off the main chapel, Father Luis unlocked a filing cabinet. People come to me when they're afraid to go to a lawyer. I've been keeping records. He handed her a thick folder. Copies of tickets, court documents, witness statements. I'm no legal expert, but even I can see something isn't right. Camilla flipped through the pages. This is incredibly helpful, Father. But I'll still need people willing to go on record. That will be harder, he admitted. But if they believe you can actually help. He paused as his phone buzzed. The priest frowned at the screen. Excuse me, I need to take this. While Father Luis stepped out, Camilla continued examining the documents. One name appeared multiple times in the arrest reports, Deputy Franklin. The door opened, but it wasn't Father Luis. Who entered? It was Maria from the grocery store. I didn't expect to see you here, Camilla said. Rosa told me you might be able to help Antonio. Maria sat down across from her. Father Luis thinks we should trust you. I want to help, Camilla said. But I need to understand what happened to your brother. Maria took a deep breath. Antonio was driving home from work at the orchard. Deputy Franklin pulled him over about a broken taillight. He asked to search the car. Antonio said no. He knows. His rights. The deputy got angry, said he smelled marijuana, and searched anyway. Then he claimed he found a bag of pills under the seat. But you don't believe that. Antonio doesn't do drugs. He worked 2 jobs to save for college. That car was his pride. He wouldn't risk everything. Maria's eyes filled with tears. The judge set bail at $50,000. We can't afford even 10% of that. So he sits in jail while his case keeps getting delayed. Camilla made notes. Has this happened to others you know? Too many. But people are scared to fight back. Sheriff Thornton has been here forever. Everyone knows someone who got on his bad side and regretted it. The next morning, Camilla visited the courthouse to request Antonio's case file. The clerk was reluctant until Camilla showed her FBI credentials. Even then, she had to wait 2 hours before being given access to a reading room. The case was flimsy. The arrest report claimed the pills were prescription painkillers, oxycodone, but the lab results were still pending after 3 months. The car had been searched based on probable cause, the deputy's claim of smelling marijuana. No marijuana had been found. As Camilla took notes, the door opened. Sheriff Thornton stood there, his face a mask of polite concern. Agent Reyes. I heard you were poking around our files. Just doing my job, Sheriff. Camilla didn't close her notebook. Antonio Gonzalez. Interesting case. Drug trafficking, Thornton said dismissively. We're seeing more of that these days. Trafficking? Camilla raised an eyebrow. The report mentions a single bag of pills, and no lab confirmation after 3 months. Sheriff Thornton stepped closer. The county lab is backed up, and we have good reason to believe Gonzalez is connected to a larger operation. What reason would that be? Ongoing investigation. You understand. His smile didn't reach his eyes. I have to say, Agent Reyes, you're spending a lot of time with certain elements in town. People might get the wrong idea about why the FBI is really here. And what idea would that be, Sheriff? That you've already made up your mind, that you're not conducting an impartial investigation. He straightened his uniform belt. This is a small town. Word gets around when an FBI agent attends community meetings where people badmouth local law enforcement. Camilla stood up, gathering her notes. I go where the evidence leads me, Sheriff. That's how investigations work. Just a friendly word of advice, Thornton said, blocking her path slightly. Pinewood takes care of its own. Always has. Outside, interference tends to complicate things unnecessarily. Is that a threat? Just an observation from someone who knows this town better than you ever will. He stepped aside. Have a nice day, Agent Reyes. Back at her motel, Camilla pinned new information to her growing case wall. Antonio's file, notes from the community meeting, names of other potential victims of discriminatory policing. She connected them with strings, building a visual map of the pattern. Her phone rang. It was Agent Thomas from the Bureau. "How's it going, Reyes?" "I've found multiple cases that support the statistical anomalies," she reported. "And the sheriff just tried to intimidate me at the courthouse." "Careful," Thomas warned. "We need this by the book, no mistakes." "I know." Camilla stared at her wall of evidence. "But these people have been waiting for justice for a long time, and I think Sheriff Thornton knows I'm getting close to something." "What's your next move?" Camilla thought about Maria, about Antonio, about all the stories she'd heard at the church. "I need to go deeper, get evidence no one can ignore." After hanging up, she sat on the edge of her bed, thinking. Regular investigation methods were yielding results, but too slowly. Sheriff Thornton had too much power, too much control over information. She needed to see what was happening firsthand, experience what the Latino residents of Pinewood experienced every day. Camilla opened her laptop and began to type a new plan, one that would put her right in the path of Deputy Franklin and his preventative policing. The rental car Camilla chose was 10 years old with a few dents in the door, nothing like her clean government sedan. She wore jeans, a simple t-shirt, and a baseball cap pulled low over her face. In the passenger seat sat a bag of groceries from Garcia's Market. The final touch was a small Mexican flag hanging from the rearview mirror, similar to ones she'd seen on other cars in the eastern neighborhood. "This is Special Agent Reyes, beginning undercover operation at 2:15 p.m. She spoke into a small recorder, hidden in her purse. "Goal is to document traffic stop procedures when conducted on Latino drivers in Pinewood County." Camilla had done her homework. The road between the eastern neighborhood and the main part of town was where most of the questionable traffic stops happened. Deputy Franklin typically worked afternoon shifts patrolling this stretch of highway. Her plan was simple: drive slightly under the speed limit, follow all traffic laws perfectly, and see what happened. She'd been driving for 20 minutes when she saw the sheriff's car parked at the side of the road. As she passed, it pulled out behind her. Camilla kept her speed steady, using her turn signal for every lane change, stopping completely at every stop sign. Still, the patrol car followed. 3 miles later, the flashing lights came on. Camilla pulled over, her heart beating faster despite years of training for high-pressure situations. This wasn't a training exercise. This was real, and she needed to experience it as the residents of Pinewood did. In her rear-view mirror, she could see Deputy Franklin approaching. His hand rested casually on his holster. Standard procedure, but it sent a clear message. "License and registration," he said, leaning down to look through her window. Camilla handed over the documents for her alias, Elena Ruiz, a name and background the Bureau had created for her. "Is something wrong, officer?" "Your right taillight. Looks dim. Mind stepping out of the car?" Camilla knew her taillight was fine. She'd checked all lights before starting. But she complied, stepping out onto the gravel shoulder. "Where are you headed today?" Deputy Franklin asked, examining her license. "Just going home from the store," Camilla replied, gesturing to the grocery bag. "Home where exactly?" "Pine Tree Apartments on Eastwood." The deputy nodded slowly. "You know, we've had some problems with drugs coming through this area. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you?" "No, sir," Camilla said, keeping her eyes down like she'd seen Miguel do at the diner. "Mind if I take a look in your car?" "Just routine. Do I have a choice?" she asked. The deputy's expression hardened. "You can make this easy or difficult, Ms. Ruiz. Your choice." "I don't consent to a search," Camilla said firmly, knowing the recorder was capturing every word. "But I understand if you feel you need to." Deputy Franklin's jaw tightened. "I smell something suspicious. That gives me probable cause." The same excuse used in Antonio's case, Camilla noted mentally. For the next 15 minutes, she stood on the roadside while Deputy Franklin searched her car thoroughly. He emptied her grocery bag, opened the trunk, looked under seats, and even checked the spare tire compartment. Other cars drove past, slowing to look. Camilla felt the humiliation that came with being treated like a criminal for no reason. "Nothing today," the deputy finally said, sounding almost disappointed. "But I'll be keeping an eye out for you, Ms. Ruiz. Welcome to Pinewood." He handed back her license with a warning for the taillight that wasn't actually dim. Camilla thanked him politely and drove away, hands shaking slightly on the steering wheel. Traffic stop concluded at 3:04 p.m. She spoke into the recorder once she was alone. 49 minutes for a routine stop with no violations found. Deputy claimed to smell something suspicious as justification for search, identical to language used in Antonio Gonzalez's case. Over the next week, Camilla repeated the experiment with variations. She drove different routes at different times. Sometimes she wore more professional clothes, sometimes casual. The results were telling. When dressed professionally in the government sedan, she was never stopped. When driving the rental with the Mexican flag, she was pulled over 3 more times, twice by Deputy Franklin and once by another deputy named Reynolds. Each stop followed the same pattern. Vague reason for the initial stop, questions about where she was going, requests to search the vehicle based on suspicions or claimed smell of contraband. After each encounter, Camilla added notes to her growing case file and pins to her map. The picture was becoming clearer by the day. On Friday evening, she met Maria at a small cafe 2 towns over, where they were unlikely to be seen by anyone from Pinewood. "They searched your car every time?" Maria asked, stirring her coffee. "Every single time," Camilla confirmed. "Even though I did nothing wrong. The longest stop was almost an hour." "That's how it starts," Maria said quietly. "With Antonio, they searched his car 4 times in 2 weeks before they found those pills." Camilla leaned forward. "I think they're planting evidence, Maria. We've all suspected it. But who would believe us over the sheriff's department?" "The FBI would, with proof." Camilla tapped her fingers on the table thoughtfully. "I need to take this to the next level. Get actual recordings of what happens inside the department." "How would you do that?" "I'm still working on it." Camilla hesitated, then added, "I visited Antonio yesterday." Maria's eyes widened. "You did? How is he?" "Holding up. I didn't tell him who I really am, just that I'm working with his lawyer. He swears those pills weren't his." "Of course they weren't." Maria's voice cracked. "His court date keeps getting pushed back. It's like they want to keep him there as long as possible without actually having to prove anything." "That's exactly what they're doing," Camilla said. "It's a pattern. The longer someone sits in jail, the more likely they are to take a plea deal, even if they're innocent." Maria wiped away a tear. "What can I do to help?" "I need more people willing to testify about their experiences. People who've been stopped, repeatedly searched without cause, or had evidence appear that wasn't theirs." "That's most of the East Side," Maria said with a bitter laugh. "But getting them to talk to the FBI?" She shook her head. "The fear runs deep." "I understand." Camilla reached across the table to squeeze Maria's hand. "But change doesn't happen without risk." Back at her motel room, Camilla was reviewing her recordings when someone knocked on her door. She froze, her hand moving instinctively toward her gun. Nobody knew she was staying here except her supervisor. Through the peephole, she saw Father Luis. She opened the door cautiously. "Father, how did you find me?" "Maria told me where you were staying. I hope that's all right." His face was grim. "We need to talk." She let him in, quickly covering her case wall with a bedsheet. "What's happened?" "Deputy Franklin arrested 2 more young men last night. Brothers, just 18 and 20. They were driving home from their job at the bowling alley. The deputy claims he found cocaine in their car." "Let me guess," Camilla said. "After a search based on suspicious smell?" Father Luis nodded. "Their mother called me in tears. These boys, they're good kids. Honor students. The older one has a scholarship to state college next fall." Camilla's jaw tightened. "It's getting worse." "I think they're sending you a message," Father Luis said. They know you're looking into them, so they're doubling down, showing you they're not afraid. Camilla paced the small room. I need to get inside information. Someone in the department who can tell me what's really happening. That would be nearly impossible. The deputies are all loyal to Sheriff Thornton. Most of them grew up here, worked with him for years. What about Deputy Wilson, the younger one at the front desk? He seemed uncomfortable when I first arrived. Father, Luis considered this. He's newer. His family moved here about 5 years ago. He's not part of the old Pinewood network. That might be my way in. Camilla made a decision. Father, I need to ask something difficult of your community. I need people to start filing formal complaints, as many as possible. Every traffic stop, every search, every instance of harassment. They'll be afraid of retaliation. I know, but I need to create pressure inside the department, make them nervous, reactive, and give Deputy Wilson plenty of paperwork to process. Father Luis sighed heavily. I'll talk to them, but I can't promise anything. After he left, Camilla called her supervisor. I need approval for Phase 2 and backup. You're pushing too fast, Reyes, Agent Thomas warned. The Bureau won't authorize expanded operations without more solid evidence. I have recordings of 4 traffic stops with clear Fourth Amendment violations, she argued, plus documentation of dozens more cases showing a pattern of discrimination. It's still circumstantial. We need someone inside or clear evidence of criminal acts by the sheriff himself. Camilla stared at her wall of evidence. Then I'll get it. But I need a wire and backup nearby. Not next week, now. There was a long pause. You have 48 hours. If you don't get something concrete, we pull you out, director's orders. The next morning, Camilla walked into the sheriff's department wearing her professional suit and FBI credentials openly. Deputy Wilson looked up in surprise. Agent Reyes, Sheriff Thornton isn't in today. Actually, I was hoping to talk to you, Deputy. She smiled warmly. In private, if possible. Wilson hesitated, then nodded to a small conference room. We can use this room. Once inside with the door closed, Camilla sat across from him. I'm going to be direct, Deputy Wilson. You don't seem comfortable with everything that happens in this department. His face paled. I don't know what you mean. I think you do. She leaned forward. I've been in Pinewood long enough to see the pattern. The targeted stops, the searches, the convenient discovery of evidence. It's not right, and I think you know that. I can't. He looked at the door nervously. This is my job, my career. And if the FBI brings charges against this department, what happens to your career then? Camilla kept her voice gentle but firm. I'm offering you a chance to be on the right side of this, Deputy Wilson, to help end something that's hurting innocent people. Wilson rubbed his face with his hands. What do you want from me? Information, specifically about meetings where Sheriff Thornton gives instructions about who to target, where to patrol, what to look for. Those happen every morning at shift change, Wilson admitted. In the sheriff's office. Camilla nodded encouragingly. And what does he say in those meetings? Deputy Wilson looked at her for a long moment, conflict clear in his eyes. Finally, he spoke. He calls it preventative policing. Says we need to focus on problem areas and known troublemakers. But it's always the East Side, always Latino, drivers. He swallowed hard. Last week he told us to make examples of a few to keep the rest in line. Would you be willing to put that in a statement? Before Wilson could answer, the door opened. Deputy Franklin stood there, his face like thunder. Wilson, what the hell is going on here? Camilla stood up calmly. Just following up on some questions, Deputy. Thank you for your time, Deputy Wilson. As she walked out of the station, Camilla knew 2 things. She had found her weak link in the department, and the clock was ticking faster than ever. The morning paper sat on the counter at Pat's Diner, its headline impossible to miss. FBI investigation causes stir in Pinewood. Camilla sipped her coffee, watching as locals picked up the paper, their eyes widening as they read. She hadn't given any interviews. Someone had leaked the purpose of her visit. Donna refilled her cup without asking. Quite the celebrity now, aren't you? Not by choice, Camilla replied, keeping her voice low. Well, folks are talking. Some saying it's about time someone looked into Sheriff Thornton. Others saying you're causing trouble where there isn't any. Donna leaned closer. My money's on the first group being right. Thanks, Camilla said with a small smile. Her phone buzzed with a text from Agent Thomas. Call me ASAP. She paid for her breakfast and walked outside to make the call. The director's office is getting calls from the mayor of Pinewood and 3 county commissioners, Thomas said without preamble. They're claiming you're stirring up racial tensions in a peaceful community. That's their spin, Camilla replied, watching as Sheriff Thornton himself walked into the diner across the street. He made a point of looking directly at her before entering. I've documented at least 30 cases of discriminatory policing. It's all in my reports. Reports aren't enough anymore. The politics are heating up. We need hard evidence and we need it yesterday. I may have someone inside willing to talk, Camilla said, thinking of Deputy Wilson. But after Franklin caught us talking, I'm not sure he'll still cooperate. Find out. And Reyes? Watch your back. Small towns protect their own. Camilla ended the call and walked to her car. A piece of paper was tucked under the windshield wiper. She unfolded it to find a handwritten note. Back off or else, final warning. As she crumpled the note, a voice behind her said, Everything okay, Agent Reyes? She turned to find Deputy Franklin, smiling coldly. Just fine, Deputy. Fan mail. Must be nice being popular. His smile disappeared. Though not everyone in town appreciates the FBI poking around in local business. Police misconduct is federal business, Camilla replied evenly. Funny thing about misconduct, you need proof. Franklin stepped closer. All I see is an outsider trying to make a name for herself by stirring up trouble with people who don't understand how American law enforcement works. Camilla felt her temper flare but kept her voice steady. I think they understand perfectly how law enforcement is supposed to work. Equal protection under the law, regardless of race or national origin. Big words from the federal government. Franklin snorted. While you're here playing social justice warrior, we're the ones keeping this town safe every day. Safe for who, Deputy? Camilla challenged. The white residents of Main Street? Or everyone? Franklin's face hardened. You've been warned, Agent Reyes. Officially and unofficially. This isn't going to end well for you. As he walked away, Camilla took a deep breath. The threat was clear, but it only confirmed what she already knew. She was getting close to something they desperately wanted to hide. She drove to the county courthouse where public records were kept. If she couldn't get Wilson to talk yet, she needed another angle. The clerk at the records office was reluctant to help until Camilla showed her federal credentials. I need arrest records for the past 3 years, broken down by officer and defendant. Demographics. That's a lot of files, the clerk said. Could take days to compile. I'll wait, Camilla replied firmly. 4 hours later, surrounded by stacks of folders, Camilla had what she needed. Deputy Franklin's arrest rate for Latino drivers was 8 times higher than for white drivers. Similar patterns appeared for other deputies, except one. Deputy Wilson's arrest rates showed no significant racial disparity. Her phone rang. A number she didn't recognize. Agent Reyes, she answered cautiously. It's Wilson. His voice was barely above a whisper. I can't talk long. Meet me at Riverfront Park in 1 hour, by the old boat launch. The park was on the edge of town, mostly, deserted on weekday afternoons. Camilla arrived early, checking for any signs she was being followed. The boat launch was secluded, hidden from the main park by a stand of trees. Deputy Wilson arrived in his personal car, not his patrol vehicle. He looked nervous, constantly scanning their surroundings. I'm risking everything talking to you, he said without preamble. I know, Camilla acknowledged, and I appreciate it. You're doing the right thing. Am I? He ran a hand through his hair. My wife works at the school. My kids go there too. If Thornton finds out I'm helping you, the FBI can protect you, Camilla assured him. Whistleblower protections, witness security if necessary. Wilson laughed bitterly. You don't get it. This isn't just about the sheriff. Half the town council, the mayor, the chief judge, they're all connected. Thornton's been running things for 20 years. All the more reason to end it, Camilla said firmly. What can you tell me about the morning meetings? The instructions about targeting certain neighborhoods? Wilson glanced around again before answering. It's never directly stated in those exact words. Thornton's too smart for that. He talks about focus areas and demographic patterns in criminal activity. But everyone knows what he means. Has he ever explicitly mentioned race or ethnicity? Wilson hesitated. Not in the big meetings, but once after hours when it was just him, Franklin, and a few of the older deputies. He swallowed hard. He said we needed to keep those people in their place before they took over the whole damn town. Would you be willing to wear a wire? Try to get him to say something similar again. The deputy's eyes widened in fear. No way, that's suicide. Then what about documents? Internal memos, emails, anything showing a pattern. There's a folder in Thornton's office. He calls it the problem file. It has photos, addresses, license plate numbers, all Latino residents who've had multiple contacts with the department. He updates it every week. Camilla leaned forward. How do I get access to that file? You don't, Wilson said firmly. His office is locked when he's not there, and the file cabinet has a separate key. But you know where he keeps the keys? Wilson stood up abruptly. I've already said too much. Use what I told you or don't, but don't ask me to steal files. Deputy Wilson, Camilla said gently. People are suffering. Antonio Gonzalez has been in jail for 3 months for a crime he didn't commit. Those brothers Father Luis told me about might lose their future. How many more? Wilson stared out at the river. The spare keys are in his desk drawer, top right. But I never told you that. He walked away quickly, leaving Camilla alone with a decision to make. Breaking into the sheriff's office would be a huge risk, potentially career-ending if caught. But it might be the only way to get the evidence she needed. That evening, Camilla received a call from Maria. They're moving Antonio, she said, her voice frantic. The lawyer just called. They're transferring him to the state prison tomorrow, even though he hasn't been convicted. They can't do that, Camilla said, already reaching for her laptop. He's only being held pre-trial. The prosecutor got a judge to sign off on it. Said he's a flight risk because of family connections in Mexico. We don't even have family in Mexico. Camilla's mind raced. This was no coincidence. They were moving Antonio to make him harder to reach, harder to help. I'm going to fix this, Maria, I promise. After hanging up, Camilla called Agent Thomas again. I need emergency authorization for a search tonight. On what grounds? Thomas asked skeptically. I have testimony from an inside source about a file containing evidence of targeted harassment, and they're escalating, moving a key witness to state prison to get him out of reach. Testimony isn't enough for a warrant, Reyes, you know that. Then I'll go in undercover, she insisted. As Elena Ruiz. If I'm caught, I'm just a local breaking in, not an FBI agent. Absolutely not, Thomas ordered. That's not just career suicide, it's potentially criminal. Stand down and wait for proper authorization. Camilla ended the call, staring at her wall of evidence. Antonio couldn't wait. None of them could. The pressure on the community was getting worse, not better, because of her presence. A knock on her door made her reach for her gun. She approached cautiously, checking through the peephole. It was Rosa from the market, looking frightened. Rosa? What's wrong? Camilla asked, opening the door. It's Maria. They arrested her an hour ago. Deputy Franklin pulled her over with her son in the car, claimed she had drugs, just like Antonio. Camilla felt cold anger building inside her. They're sending me a message. They're destroying families is what they're doing, Rosa said, her voice breaking. Maria's boy is with me now. He won't stop crying for his mother. In that moment, Camilla made her decision. Playing by the rules wasn't working. The sheriff and his deputies were escalating, targeting people close to her investigation. Waiting for bureaucratic approval would mean more innocent people suffering. Stay with Maria's son, she told Rosa. I'll handle this. After Rosa left, Camilla opened her closet. Behind her suits and casual clothes hung a dark outfit she'd packed just in case. Black pants, black shirt, dark cap. Not standard FBI procedure, but then, nothing about this case had been standard. She checked her watch. 11:30 p.m. The sheriff's department would be minimally staffed at this hour. According to the schedules she'd studied, Deputy Reynolds would be on desk duty with one patrol car out, likely on the east side of town where they focused their harassment. Camilla tucked her lockpicks into her pocket and her backup weapon into an ankle holster. Her official service weapon and badge would stay behind. Tonight, she wasn't an FBI agent. She was just someone seeking justice for a town living in fear. As she drove toward the sheriff's department, she rehearsed what she would say if caught. She was risking everything, her career, her freedom, but the faces of Antonio, Maria, and all the others drove her forward. The small parking lot behind the department was empty except for Reynolds's car. A single light burned in the front office. Camilla parked 2 blocks away and approached on foot, keeping to the shadows. The back door had a standard lock. Nothing fancy for a small-town sheriff's department. Within 30 seconds, she was inside, moving silently down the darkened hallway, toward Thornton's office. For the first time since arriving in Pinewood, Camilla felt she had the upper hand. She would find the evidence, expose the truth, and bring down the system of fear Sheriff Thornton had built. No matter the cost. Sheriff I. Thornton's office was exactly what Camilla expected. Wood paneling, hunting trophies, and a large desk that dominated the room. She closed the door silently behind her and turned on a small pen light, keeping the beam low and away from the windows. The filing cabinet stood in the corner, solid metal with a heavy lock. Camilla went to the desk first, sliding open the top, right drawer as Wilson had instructed. A ring of keys lay next to a half-empty pack of gum. She took the keys and moved to the cabinet. The third key fit. The drawer slid open with a soft metallic sound that seemed too loud in the quiet building. Inside, just as Wilson had described, was a thick folder labeled simply, "Problem Cases." Camilla's heart beat faster as she opened it. Pages of photos. Names, addresses, all Latino residents of Pinewood. Some had red marks next to their names, others yellow. Handwritten notes in the margins read things like, "Third contact, escalate," or "Known associate of Gonzalez." She used her phone to photograph each page, working quickly and methodically. Near the back of the file, she found what she was looking for, a memo on Sheriff's Department letterhead, dated 6 months earlier. It outlined patrol strategies focusing on areas with demographic shifts and instructed deputies to maintain visibility and control in zones with higher concentrations of migrant workers and their families. It wasn't explicitly racial, but combined with the targeted surveillance file and the arrest statistics, it painted a clear picture of systematic discrimination. Camilla photographed the memo, her hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her body. As she was returning the file to the cabinet, a sound from the hallway froze her in place. Footsteps approaching the office. Camilla quickly closed the drawer, locked it, and returned the keys to the desk. There was nowhere to hide except behind the door. She pressed herself against the wall, holding her breath as the footsteps stopped. Outside. The door opened. Deputy Reynolds stood in the doorway, his flashlight beam sweeping across the room. Camilla remained perfectly still, willing him not to turn around and check behind the door. The beam passed within inches of her shoes. Reynolds muttered to himself. Could have sworn I heard something. He closed the door and continued down the hallway. Camilla waited until the footsteps faded completely before allowing herself to breathe again. She'd gotten what she came for. Now she needed to get out without being seen. She waited 5 more minutes, listening intently for any sounds in the building. When she was confident the coast was clear, she slipped out of the office and made her way back to the rear exit. The night air felt cool on her face as she emerged into the alley behind the building. Camilla had taken only 3 steps when a voice said, "Interesting time for a visit, isn't it?" Sheriff Thornton stepped out from the shadows, his service weapon, drawn but pointed at the ground. He looked entirely unsurprised to see her. "I'd ask what you're doing here, Agent Reyes, but I think we both know. Camila kept her expression neutral. Just getting some fresh air, Sheriff. At midnight, behind my department, dressed like a cat, burglar. He smiled thinly. You must think I'm as stupid as you think my deputies are. I don't think you're stupid at all, Camila replied. I think you're very smart. Smart enough to run a systematic campaign of harassment against Latino residents without leaving obvious evidence. That's quite an accusation. The sheriff's smile disappeared, especially from someone I just caught breaking into a government building. We both know it won't come to that, Camila said, calculating her options. You press charges against me, I release what I know about your department, nobody wins. Thornton considered this. What exactly do you think you know? Everything, she bluffed. The targeted stops, the planted evidence, the problem file with its color-coded targeting system, the instructions to deputies about which neighborhoods to patrol and who to make examples of. The sheriff's face hardened. You've been talking to Wilson. I've been talking to everyone, Camila countered, and they're not afraid anymore. Thornton laughed, but there was no humor in it. Oh, they're afraid, all right. That's how law and order works in a place like Pinewood. Fear keeps people in line. Is that what you call justice, Sheriff? Terrorizing families? Separating children from their parents over manufactured charges? I call it protecting a way of life, Thornton said, his voice dropping to a near growl. My father and grandfather kept this town safe, kept it the way it's supposed to be. Then these people started moving in, changing everything, not respecting our traditions, our values. The only tradition you're protecting is racism, Camila said flatly. The sheriff's face flushed with anger. You outsiders never understand. You come in with your federal badges and your big city ideas telling us how to run our communities. This town was peaceful before they came. Peaceful for who? Camila challenged. The people who looked like you? Thornton raised his weapon slightly. I could say you attacked me, broke in, got caught, panicked. Nobody would question it. My body camera is recording everything right now, Camila lied, maintaining eye contact. And I'm not the only one investigating. You. The Bureau knows exactly where I am and why. For a long moment, they stared at each other in silence. Then Thornton lowered his weapon. Get out of my town, Agent Reyes. You've got nothing but rumors and hearsay. No judge around here will take the word of those people over mine. We'll see about that, Camila said, edging toward the street. This isn't over, Sheriff. Oh, it's over, Thornton called after her. One way or another. Camila walked away without looking back, her pace measured until she was out of sight. Then she ran the rest of the way to her car, her mind racing with plans. She had the evidence now, not as much as she'd hoped for, but enough to justify a formal investigation. She needed to get it to Agent Thomas immediately. Back at her motel, Camila uploaded the photos to her secure bureau server and called Thomas. You're not going to believe what I found, she began. Save it, Thomas cut her off. We've got bigger problems. Maria Gonzalez was booked an hour ago on drug possession charges. The same judge who approved her brother's transfer has denied bail. Franklin is framing her just like Antonio, Camila said, her stomach sinking. They're trying to shut down my witnesses. It gets worse, Thomas continued. The sheriff has filed a formal complaint against you with the Bureau, claiming harassment and interfering with local law enforcement. He's demanding you be removed from the investigation. He can't do that. I have evidence. The director is reviewing the situation now. But Reyes, if you did anything outside protocol, Camila thought about her nighttime visit to the sheriff's office. I did what was necessary. Thomas sighed heavily. Be at the courthouse at 9 a.m. tomorrow. The state attorney general is sending someone to review the situation. Don't do anything else until then. Sleep was impossible. Camila spent the night organizing her evidence, preparing her arguments and worrying about Maria. By morning, she had a complete case file documenting the pattern of discrimination in Pinewood County. The courthouse was crowded when she arrived. Word had spread about the FBI investigation, and it seemed everyone in town had an opinion. Camila spotted Father Luis with several members of his congregation on one side of the lobby. On the other, Sheriff Thornton stood with Deputy Franklin and several well-dressed men she assumed were local officials. Agent Thomas was waiting for her, along with a serious-looking woman in a charcoal suit. "Agent Reyes, this is District Attorney Lisa Cortez from the State Attorney General's office," Thomas said. "Glad to meet you," Camilla said, shaking the woman's hand. "I have extensive documentation of civil rights violations by the Sheriff's Department." "So, I've heard," D.A. Cortez replied. "I've also heard about some unorthodox investigative methods." Before Camilla could respond, the main doors opened and a group of people entered. Deputy Wilson was among them, along with 3 other deputies she didn't recognize. "What's happening?" she asked Thomas. "I'm not entirely sure," he admitted. "But Wilson called me this morning. Said he couldn't live with himself anymore." Sheriff Thornton spotted Wilson and the other deputies. His face darkened with anger. "What the hell do you think you're doing, Wilson?" "The right thing, sir," Wilson replied, his voice shaking but determined. Finally, the group approached D.A. Cortez. "Ma'am, we'd like to make formal statements about practices within the Pinewood County Sheriff's Department, specifically regarding Sheriff Thornton's instructions to target Latino residents and the department's evidence handling procedures." The room erupted in voices. Thornton lunged toward Wilson, only to be held back by Thomas. Deputy Franklin looked stunned, his eyes darting between his colleagues and the sheriff. D.A. Cortez raised her voice above the noise. "Let's continue this discussion in a more appropriate setting." She turned to a bailiff. "Please escort these deputies and Agent Reyes to Conference Room A. Sheriff Thornton, you and Deputy Franklin can wait in Conference Room B." As they moved toward the rooms, Camilla passed Maria's family in the hallway. Rosa was there with Maria's son, who ran to Camilla and hugged her legs. "Are you going to bring my mommy and uncle home?" he asked, his eyes full of hope. Camilla knelt, down to his level. "I'm doing everything I can," she promised. For the next 6 hours, Camilla presented her evidence while Wilson and the other deputies gave their statements. They described how Sheriff Thornton had created a culture of targeted harassment, how evidence was planted on suspects who needed to be taught a lesson, and how anyone who questioned these practices was intimidated into silence. By late afternoon, D.A. Cortez had heard enough. She called both parties together in the main conference room. "Based on the evidence and testimony presented today, I'm recommending immediate suspension of Sheriff Thornton and Deputy Franklin pending a full investigation by my office," she announced. "Furthermore, I'm ordering the release of Maria Gonzalez and a review of all cases handled by this department involving Latino defendants over the past 5 years, starting with Antonio Gonzalez." Sheriff Thornton's face was a mask of barely controlled rage. "This is a witch hunt. You can't." "I can. And I am," D.A. Cortez interrupted. "This goes far beyond Pinewood County now, Sheriff. The pattern of civil rights violations documented by Agent Reyes and corroborated by your own deputies warrants federal prosecution." As the reality of his situation sank in, Thornton turned to Camilla. "You've destroyed everything. This town will never be the same." "That's the idea," Camilla replied quietly. 3 days later, Camilla stood outside the county jail as Antonio and Maria walked free, embracing their family members with tears of joy. The local newspaper's headline read, "State takes control of Sheriff's Department amid discrimination scandal." Father Luis approached her as she watched the reunion. "You did what many thought was impossible," he said. "Not me," Camilla corrected. "Him. All of you. The people who were brave enough to speak up, to file complaints, to testify. Deputy Wilson and the others who chose conscience over loyalty." "What happens now?" Father Luis asked. "The state will appoint an interim sheriff while the investigation continues. There will be trials, reforms, oversight." Camilla smiled as she watched Maria's son running circles around his mother and uncle. "And people will be able to drive through Pinewood without fear." As the sun set over the town, Camilla thought about Sheriff Thornton's words. The town would never be the same. It would be better, more just, more equal. The work wasn't finished, but it had begun, and that was something worth fighting for. She had one more stop to make before leaving Pinewood. At the sheriff's department, now under state control, Deputy Wilson was clearing out his desk. "You're not staying?" Camilla asked. Wilson shook his head. "Too many bad memories. But the state police offered me a position in their civil rights division. Seems they need people who understand how discrimination works from the inside. You'll be good at that," Camilla said sincerely. "It takes courage to stand up against a system you're part of." "I learned that from watching you," he replied. "Sometimes doing the right thing means risking everything." As Camilla drove out of Pinewood the next morning, she passed the welcome sign once more. It looked different somehow, not because the sign had changed, but because the town behind it had. Change had come to Pinewood County, and though the road ahead would be challenging, it was finally heading in the right direction.